This video is published by mbkpinternational.com. In this video I'm going to show you how to, it's going to be a more advanced or more detailed adjustment, blade angle adjustment for the Perfect G12 Pro. This will also be good for the Perfect G17 Pro. And I'm just going to go into a little more detail in this video and show people some of the things they could be doing wrong if they're not getting it right, and maybe a few tips. The first thing you're going to want to do is loosen this with your hex wrench. It should have came with it. And some people have a hard time loosening it. It's too tight for them. A little tip: if you want to put it here, on the with it on the pointing on the inside here towards that side, you just tap it with a hammer, and you're going to be going counterclockwise. And you can tap it with a hammer down and break it loose. And sometimes you got to hit it a little harder than just a tap, but that's just to break it loose if it's too hard for you to break loose by hand. Once you get it broken loose, you can turn it about another turn, and it should be nice and loose for you. Another thing people have problems with, basically you're going to be turning this with your hand, either counterclockwise or clockwise, depending on which way you need to go. Another problem some people have is it's too hard for them to turn. If you can't find somebody possibly a little stronger to turn it, a tip is you can rock this up and down as you're trying to turn it, and it will help you turn it a little bit easier. Okay. Another problem we come into when people adjust these is they get them and they turn them like a quarter a turn or a half a turn. When you're doing these adjustments, it's very small, like a couple, 2, 3, 4 degrees. It's just very small turns, and you got to be careful to only turn just a little bit, just like that way or that way, just a little bit. Some people turn them way. A big problem some people come into is one thing, when this is down in the right position, you can like take this or something else with a straight edge. It should be, you can line it up here, and this should not be past this. At most it should be maybe right up against it, but with this all the way down, and up against the cut pad, the blade all the way down against the cut pad, you can put this alongside it, and I may be touching it slightly, but it shouldn't be past it at all, or even into the middle of it hardly, with it all the way down. And if it is, and I'll show you, I already loosened it, and some people will start turning these and turn them, and they basically do a complete 360 with it, and it's in the, even though this is in the position where it looks like it will cut, even if they adjust the angle to where it's up a little bit there, this will not work at all. It's just the mechanics of it are completely wrong now, because I did a 360 on this, and you can tell it's wrong by go all the way down, and now I'll put this here, and you can see how this just sticks past it here, or right up against it there. That's in the wrong position. And if yours is like that, the first thing you want to do is turn this the other way, which will be clockwise, and you can rock it, and you can see this moves in, which I'll move it all the way out. And you can see as I move it the right way, this will move in more. And now it's in more, and it's not against. So you just want to make sure yours is that way, with it all the way down. You can see it's not, the back of this does not go protrude past that there. So when you, first of all, look for that. If yours is way out here, you need to turn this clockwise all the way until you get more in here. Okay, and then we can start from there, and you're in the right position. Now you're only going to be turning this just a little bit, So the first thing you want to do also on this is, what we're looking for is when this blade touches the back of this cut pad, this needs to be up a little bit. A lot of people make the mistake, they think it should just hit right, like this one's hitting, since I turned it all the way all the way clockwise, it's hitting completely flat at the same time. That's incorrect. That's not the way this cutter is designed to work. It's designed to come down on this side first, and then it does a slicing action to get the bottom pages. Okay, so basically you want to be very, very slow, get down eye level with this, and slowly, you can tap on this a little bit at the top here, just tap it to lower it, and you got to watch it very close, and the second that touches this cut pad, you don't want it to go into it a couple millimeters, you don't want it to be a millimeter or so above it, because then you won't get the angle right. You got to watch very closely, and the second it touches it, it needs to be up here approximately 1/8 of an inch, and to be honest with you, it's probably 1/8 of an inch shy, and that's on the G12 Pro. On the G17, it could be a little over 1/8 of an inch. In the manual, sometimes it says anywhere between 1/8 and 3/16. But on the G12, you want it to be no more than 1/8 for sure. Most likely slightly under 1/8 of an inch. On the G17, you want it to be just maybe slightly over 1/8 of an inch. Okay. I got this Q-tip here, I cut off the end, and this Q-tip shaft here is just a hair under 1/8 of an inch. And basically we're talking about 3 millimeters. So on this one, slightly under 1/8 of an inch, or about 3 millimeters. On the G17, slightly over 1/8 of an inch, or maybe about 4 millimeters. Okay, and so I got it touching there, and it's touching here at the same time, so that's wrong. And now if I need to, I'm gonna rock this up and down just lightly if I need to change this angle. I'm gonna be going, since I went all the way clockwise, it's completely all the way clockwise. It pulled this back. Now I'm gonna be going counterclockwise to raise this front up. Okay, I already did a little bit, and you can see it here. I'm gonna lift this clamp up so you can see a little better. It's about, you can see I can just barely get this under. You want to use something soft because you don't want to chip your blade. It's barely getting, not even quite, but it's barely starting to go under. It's just dragging on just a little bit, and that's about perfect. It's just touching this on this side. Actually, it wasn't. I moved it there. So it actually needs a little bit more. I'm going to go counterclockwise since I went all the way clockwise. Okay, now I got it. Okay, now it's touching that perfectly. It's not going into the cut pad, and it's not slightly above the cut pad. Now, if you don't get this right, you won't get this right. So make sure it has to be perfectly just touched it. You know, just the second it makes contact with it. You don't want to go into the cut pad at all, but you don't want to be above it either. And you can look on this side, and again, I use something soft like this paper Q-tip shaft to kind of check it. It's just barely wanting to go under it. Not quite, and that's about perfect. Some people end up doing a lot more. Some people think it's 1/8 of an inch, but they don't really check it, and it's sitting up about this high on this here, and it's just way too much. It will never cut completely through. But once you get your angle right, you can tighten this down and get it nice, snug, hand tight, and then check it again. Sometimes it could move just a hair when you tighten it, so check it again. And we'll go one more time with it, and it just touched. And that's just where this barely starts to fit under there. And it should be right. And okay, now once I confirm that it's in the right place, I can put this in, and if you're not strong enough, you can tap it clockwise to snug it. Okay, now if you watch this blade come down, it'll touch that first. It's up a little bit there, not much, but just a little bit. Okay, there it's touching, it's just up just a little bit. This thing just barely drags under there, and it catches it some too. Now as I continue to pull this down, it starts going to the pad on this side, and it starts slicing back a little bit. And it'll eventually finish up into the pad on this side, okay? If you're doing this, and you're doing this, and it doesn't cut all the way through, especially on this side here, then you need to lower the blade a little bit more. You know, you didn't get it quite enough. I'm just using this as a guide, you know, it's about a hair under 1/8 of an inch, and that's about right for this. But you don't want it to slide under here nice and easy. You want it to barely start. When it touches that, you want to start catch it just a little bit and almost shave the top of it almost. It's not much, it's just a nice thin, small amount right there, not like that. When that's touching, and then as you fully bring it down, it will cut into that as well. And sometimes there's a break-in period on these pads, so sometimes you got to pull down a little bit hard at the end to start to break this, to get this blade broke into that cut pad, to get that groove into there. The more you use it, the more it'll start to break into it. But if it's not cutting right here, you need to adjust the angle a little bit more. You need to drop this down just a hair more. If you go down to where it's flat, it touches both at the same time, it's not going to cut right there either. It's a fine line, so you got to get that right amount. Again, I use a Q-tip shaft, and it worked about perfect. And I think I covered about everything on this. This video is published by mbkpinternational.com.